Recording in progress. Hello and welcome to the final 5:30 mindfulness meditation of January. Um, yeah, first month of the new year. How's it been? One of my favorite things I realized, and I guess in a sense I've always kind of known this, but it became more explicit recently. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, benefit of meditation is that it gives us agency, and by agency I mean it gives us control over ourselves, which is, in my mind, the most liberating sense of freedom there is. Control over oneself, self-control. And in the context of January, New Year, oftentimes, self-control means, well, I'm not going to drink as much, or I'm going to make these conscious efforts to change. And that's great. Whatever you want to do to self-improve. There's a saying in Zen, you're perfect just the way you are, and there's room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. I was driving and I got this, it was closer to like a physical pain. It was an emotion, but one that I hadn't felt for a while. And it was almost as though there was like a jab at my body. And I'm like, oh, I kind of winced, and there was an adverse reaction to it. And I thought, man, I haven't thought about that in a while. And I just kept driving. And then it happened again. And I thought, man, I really hate that, like, a lot. That's a really, really adverse emotion. And I started thinking, well, yeah, but what do I want to do about it? And the answer was nothing. And that's huge for me, because I started thinking about other similar situations in the past where I didn't have the understanding that I could actually do something, that I could have agency over those circumstances, over those emotions. It's amazing to me now, even, to know that that's an option, to know that, okay, well, I can notice how I'm feeling, but I get to decide my level of involvement. And that's huge. When we sit and meditate in stillness, which is what we do here, more in the Vipassana vein or style of meditation, we're practicing open monitoring, which is where we just watch everything. We watch physical sensations, we watch our emotions, we watch our thoughts. We just become one with the present moment, willingly, willfully. And when we start to do that, it gives us agency, because we think, oh, well, there's that thought again. Normally, I would just become the thought, or the thought would become me. Normally, these emotions would like take me over. And all of a sudden, I'm a victim of the emotion, because I'm going through autopilot, the victim of the emotions, and I'm just repeating past pain. Meditation can change that. It gives us agency. It allows us to, by practice of open observation or open monitoring, I like that term, we just watch. And when we watch, it gives us agency. We start to realize, oh yeah, okay, well, I can think that, but it really doesn't matter unless I make it matter. I can take this emotion or this thought or this experience as personally as I want to or not. I can make as much or as little out of this as I want to. Meditation gives us that choice. Many of us don't realize that we have the choice, or if we do realize that, we haven't put in the practice to really put that into practice. Because when we sit down and we realize, oh, I have a scratch on my arm, but it's up to me if I want to itch it or not, that gives us agency, instead of just, autopilot scratching, and then you have one over here, and then over here. It's not the itch that is the problem. It's the autopilot of just mind says something and we do it immediately. The mind is controlling us. We don't have control over ourselves. There's a saying, know thyself. In Autobiography of a Yogi, they say, know thyself, but they actually put a space between thy and self. So it's know thy, capital S, self, which is to say, like, the higher self. In Hinduism, one of the beliefs is that you're more than your mind because you can be aware of your mind. And you're more than your body because you can be aware of your body. And you're more than your emotions because you can be aware of your emotions. So if you're not your mind and your body and your emotions, then what are you? And it's pretty obvious. you are that awareness, that observing presence. And the more we practice sitting in mindful stillness and just letting things come and go, the more space that gives us to do what we please, to do what serves us, as my friend George would say. How does that serve you? Oftentimes, we're just going through autopilot. When we sit down to meditate, we become awake, which is interesting because it seems like we're, uh, not really doing much. But being mindful gives us the options to uh, deal with our emotions, our physical sensations, our thoughts, how we want to. And there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of liberation practicing open monitoring. Normally, an emotion would come up in my younger days or last decade, and all of a sudden I was just at the mercy of the emotion. But by meditating, it's important that we stay still with adverse emotions, uh, positive emotions, negative emotions, neutral emotions. We just practice being there for whatever comes up. And through that practice, when things come up in our more active life, let's say off the mat or outside of our stillness, mindful stillness practice, again, it gives us agency. And we think, well, I could take this as seriously as I want to or not. It's actually up to me. So, something to think about. The less we try to control the experience, the more control we have. The more you try to control your thoughts, the more your thoughts control you. The more you try to control the present experience, the less control you have. The more we let go and relax and observe, the more control we have. So by taking a hands-off approach, practicing open monitoring, letting go, not trying to control whatever's going on, that gives us a control that we seek. It seems counterintuitive or definitely paradoxical, but the more we practice, the more sense it makes, because we think, oh yeah, well, by not hanging on to that emotion or taking it so seriously, that gives me a choice as to whether or not I want to take it seriously. It's like if there's a pain in your body, think, ouch. And then if it happens again, you think, ouch. But people with anxiety or OCD might think, well, am I dying right now? What's the message here? Do I need to make a phone call? Do I need to go to the hospital? Like they start to take it very, very seriously, when really the pain is usually past and they're still thinking about it. But the pain's gone, the mental ripples or the after effect of the emotion oftentimes stays much longer than the emotion itself. And we start to realize that the duration of these emotions, these physical experiences, these thoughts, everything is just very fluid. And that's awesome. And whatever comes up, we have the option to do whatever we want with it. Alan Watts talks about, and Thich Nhat Hanh does too, actually. There's a lot of crossover in the philosophies, Eastern philosophies. But Thich Nhat Hanh talks about an unbounded ocean of reality. And that's what we tap into whenever we meditate. Alan Watts talks about a similar ocean, and he says you can't drink the ocean in one gulp. You can't do it. You need a cup, and you just take little sips at a time. And you'll never be able to drink the whole ocean, but our level of consciousness, our body, our experience is just one drop in this ocean of consciousness. And that is to say, a lot of these emotions, a lot of these physical sensations, or these adverse thoughts, that is a sip of a much larger ocean that we don't understand. And whenever these emotions come up, I think, okay, well, that's my understanding or lack thereof in this moment. Like there's a feeling attached to a thought, attached to a story. I understand the mechanism or the process that's going into making me feel this way. That doesn't mean that it's valid. It doesn't mean that it's true. And when we start to just notice what's coming up and not take it so seriously, these stories have less power over us. These emotions and these attachments to these stories have less power over us. And then we're just sitting and relaxing and generating space, the space of mindfulness. And whatever happens in that space, we have control over because we're not trying to control it. So I hope that that helps. And if you've been meditating consistently for a while, you probably know what I'm talking about. Because if you practice watching what's happening in the present moment, all of a sudden that becomes more of a default mode of consciousness, to where you're just aware, oh yeah, that's what I'm feeling right now, as opposed to the feeling taking us over and we're acting through that past pain or that past trauma. We're awake. And with that, we have agency, which is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, benefit of meditation. We have that understanding. So find a comfortable seated position and we'll go ahead and get started. Long spine, maybe roll your shoulders up, back, and down. Relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the muscles in your face, closing your eyes. Taking a few deep breaths. And if you like, maybe setting an intention for the next 20 minutes or so. Your intention can be that for the next 20 minutes, we're just going to be intensely present, deeply aware, practicing open monitoring. Whatever we feel, whatever we think, whatever we experience on any and every level, we're just going to be there for it. Just the observing presence. Take a deep breath in. Let it go. Taking your time, gently blink your eyes open. When we meditate in stillness, it gives us options. Do we want to scratch that itch or leave it? It's up to us. Do we want to fight with this thought that we're having or allow it to be? It's up to us. Do we want to get wrapped up and read deeply into this emotion that we're experiencing right now? Or do we want to mindfully stay with our breath and allow it to come and go as it pleases? It's up to us. Knowing that we are capable of that agency or that self-control is one thing, but having the capacity to put it into practice is another. And I want to thank you for sharing your practice with me this evening and every Monday. Hope to see you soon. Take good care.